So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our glorious CEO and publisher, Bridget Bella.
Thanks, Jason. Glorious is a new word. That's kind of awesome. I think I like that. Thank you guys all for being here. We were talking with the panelists ahead when we were preparing and saying how many new names we saw of people that were joining us. And so I just want to take a second to talk about TBBW, what we do, and why we are, as Jason said, convening these conversations with subject matter experts. We have an audience of 15,000 decision makers. They are in the C-suite. So they're CHRO, CEO, COO, CIO, kind of anything that you can think of that's in the C-suite. And what we do is try to give them advice-driven content that can help them run their businesses better. And so I want to say thank you to this amazing panel who has given their time freely this afternoon to try to help us all do a better job of running our businesses. If you have a question that you want to ask, there's an email in the chat box that you can email that question to, and we will do our very best to get to those at the end, but we've got some great content prepared for you, and so no promises that we'll get to all of those, but we will do our absolute best to try. So I'm going to jump right in so that you guys get what you're looking for out of this. And it's not me talking to you, it's the wonderful panelists that we've put together. And Erika, this event was your idea, and KnowBe4 is sponsoring and making it possible for everybody to be a part of today's discussion. So why don't you talk a little bit about yourself and why you felt like this was an important conversation for us to have?
Absolutely. Thank you. So my name is Erika Lance. I'm the Senior Vice President of People Operations for KnowBe4. We're a company that does cybersecurity and new school security awareness training for employees. I've been in HR roughly around 25 years. So I like to joke that I've been there, done that, and I have a lot of t-shirts from it. But the reason I thought this was a good idea is because having been in this industry for a very long time, there's a lot that needs to change, especially with what employees are looking for and what employees need. And I feel like the industry is not moving fast enough and looking in the right places. So I was hoping with this series to sort of open more questions and give some guidance as to how we can do things better. So that was my idea for this.
Well, it was awesome. And she said we had to call it the Radical CHRO. So I have to give her all the credit for everything that we're doing. I'm going to stick with you for our first question. And a big part of what, the title of the event is listening to your employees. So I'd like for you to talk about how you make it a safe place for your employees to actually talk to you. And being in the HR lead's office is like being in the principal's office, and it's a little terrifying sometimes. So tell us how you disarm them and make them feel comfortable.
Well, thank you. Yeah. So the first thing we do is we have an open door policy that's truly an open door policy. A lot of people say that, but we have that. The other thing is HR is not actually responsible for delivering discipline. And I know we're going to get into this more a little later, but we train our managers on how to deliver the discipline, because otherwise HR is always the bad guy, no matter what the situation is. And we set up some survey check-ins. So we do surveys just kind of like, hey, how's it going with different areas of the company, and make it so the HR folks are introduced to the employees on a very pleasant way. And depending on what the employees say back during those surveys, we actually make the changes. And so it opens the door for employees to feel like they're being heard, reaching out and touching bases with them when they're not in trouble or there's not some issue with them, but starting the conversation. And I don't think we start enough conversations with employees and then take what they say and make a difference. And that is, if you do an action, if based on what an employee says, even a small thing, if you do something about it and acknowledge it, it's huge. And then they will tell other people you can talk to them, and it kind of creates a ripple effect. So it's the action of doing active listening too with your employees and making sure they actually feel like they're heard. And how employees feel like they're heard is something happens from what they said. So.
Well, and I actually read somewhere that if you're not going to follow up on the answers to the survey, don't do the survey, because it's actually more detrimental than it is good. Is that accurate?
Oh, 1000%. 1000%. I had I was on a panel at one point in time. None of the lovely, amazing people who are on this panel were on that panel, but the person was like, oh yeah, we do a survey and, to make changes. And we did a snack survey, they said. And I said, really? So how long ago was that? And they're like 9 months. People have children in 9 months. They're not waiting for a result to a snack survey in 9 months. You should, before 9 months is up, be able to change it from Doritos to potato chips, whatever the end result was. But if you wait that long, an employee absolutely doesn't feel like they're heard. And especially if it's on a minor topic like snacks. If it's a huge topic, you got to go back and go, we got a lot of feedback. We're looking into it, acknowledge it. But something small, forget it. Who wants to answer something? Because 9 months from now, you might be on a whole different diet. You might be like, I am only eating meat. I'm on carnivore. I need beef jerky. Then the potato chips are out the window and you're super not listened to.
That's awesome. I know that the power behind getting great answers is asking great questions. And Jen, that's something that you're really good at. So why don't you share kind of what your secret is to asking very powerful answers and or asking very powerful questions and generating the answers you're looking for.
Thanks. So hello, everyone. I'm Jennifer Currence. I own a leadership training and coaching company here in Tampa, Florida. I'm also the director of training for a manufacturing company called Microlumen and a certified trainer for the Predictive Index. I see some of my colleagues here on the call. I'm also on faculty for the Society for Human Resource Management and University of Tampa. So it's an honor to be here and share with you some of the things that I learned in my coaching program, which was the power of questions. So I think one of the things that we get from surveys, like Erika was talking about, we get that quantitative data, but then to follow it back up and get the qualitative data from asking powerful questions. And a lot of times what people do when they ask questions is they'll go in and say, well, do you like potato chips or do you like Doritos? And if it's a yes or a no answer. But when we can go in with a more powerful question that start with what or how. So when we have questions that start with what or how, if you can just remember that simple tool, sometimes I just start asking a question with what, and then I think of the question to ask because I know that then a more open-ended question is going to follow. So when we're able to ask those questions that start with what or how, we get a more robust answer and we're able to dig into some of the meat. In fact, the power of questions is so glorious that we can, a lot of times I challenge my leaders to ask what I call the 3 asks. So before they go in and tell somebody to do something, ask 3 questions first and challenge themselves to really dig in to get that more qualitative data.
That's great advice. Thank you. So I made a reference earlier to being in the human resources office is often like being in the principal's office. And Kelli, I want to ask you, like, how do you make that a less scary place? How do you, again, disarm people? And, obviously they're not going to get a spanking, but back in the old days we did. How do you make them think that they're not going to get a spanking and that you're actually a valuable resource for frontline managers?
So that's great. I think somebody said something earlier about delivering performance or delivering discipline from the HR standpoint. And I agree, that's not our job, right? That's not why we're here. We're here to make sure that, employees are treated fairly and that they have the resources that they need in order to do the job that we're asking them to do. And so, my job is more, making sure that the managers have what they need to motivate and help their employees to succeed. And so I think a lot of it has to do with that first onboarding and make sure it's strategic onboarding and helping new managers to your organization, whether they're brand new to the organization or they've come up through, to understand that you're here to be their resource. You're here to be their support. You're here to be their partner and to help them. I think for us, a more strategic approach to say, we're going to meet every couple of weeks and we're going to go through, what are you used to and what do you need and what kind of support do you need in order to do a good job managing your folks? And it's not walking into my office and say, so-and-so is not doing a good job, can you get rid of them? It's, so-and-so is a little off track, and I want to make sure that I can get them back on track when they're, when it's just a conversation instead of it's, a performance improvement plan, because you've never said anything to them. If the managers are coming into your office wanting to put someone on a PIP or wanting to terminate somebody for poor performance, my first question is, so what have you done about it yet? Right? And if you haven't done anything about it yet, then the problem's with you and not with the employee, because the employee thinks they're doing a fine job because nobody's told them otherwise. And that's not fair to the employee. So if we can have more constant communication with the managers and really dig into, how's your team doing? Is there anybody standing out? Is there anything going on that you want to talk about? And just because you say something to me, or just because you bring up an issue or a problem to me, doesn't mean I have to do anything about it. Right? So I try to have this safe space that says, just because we're having a conversation doesn't mean I'm getting involved, unless it's something absolutely crazy and egregious. But otherwise, I'm going to listen to you, and I'm going to help you with resources. If it's something that the employee needs resources on, then I'm going to help find those. But otherwise, I'm going to help you learn how to speak to your employees and learn how to correct your employees without being confrontational and without waiting until they're so off track that it's a lost cause.
Kelli, I may have missed it. I'm trying to do 1,000 things at once, but I don't think you introduced yourself, and I think your company is fascinating. Well, it's okay. Actually, it gives more time for answers to questions, but just as I was introduced to you and to your CEO, I had no idea that the nation's largest film manufacturer was in Pinellas Park, Florida. So do you want to talk just for a second about that?
Yep. So my name is Kelli Houdek, and I am the Director of Human Resources for MADICO, Inc. We are the global headquarters here in Pinellas Park of the window film, basically window film, for ease of explanation. So we manufacture things like the window film that you have on your car. We manufacture film, safety and security film. We manufacture reflective film, mirrored film that you'll see downtown on buildings, anti-graffiti film, all kinds of different types of film-based materials. We also have a location in Louisville, Kentucky that we're responsible for from a human resources perspective as well.
And they do test strips, which I had a hard time doing this with that, but just
and
a really fascinating
device
company.
Protection, so phone screen covers and.
My phone currently needs your help. I'm just saying.
Oh, you can bring it over. Yeah.
So Danielle, don't forget to introduce yourself. I have said several times during our conversations that I cannot imagine what it has been like in the HR world during COVID. And I would love for you to talk about how that has changed how you do things, how you handle things, just in general. What has this pandemic done to the HR industry?
Hi, everyone. I'm Danielle, Oliva. I'm the VP of HR for Franklin Street. We're a commercial real estate and insurance company, and we handle all commercial real estate needs. So that's a great question. I don't necessarily think it's anything different. I think it amplified. And, unfortunately, like something like COVID coming along, I think a lot of people, because of what HR had to do, actually respect HR even more. We're always, we're always on guard to expect the unexpected, but this was a whole nother level, I think. And I remember when everything was going on TVs and we have monitors in our office and we're like, what's this going on? What's this COVID? And, HR's talking. And then I remember me and my HR managers just looking at each other. I'm like, this is bigger than us. we need to get the executive and leaderships involved, because this is like, it shocked you for a second, because it was like, okay, but you just, okay, safety first, what do we need to do? And we went into that. Just like Erika said, we actually, after about 2 or 3 months, we surveyed our team members, and because they were all working remotely, it's like, what do you need? And we got everything, because we weren't kind of data doing it. We were just like, what do you need? Tell us, like, emotionally, like, we got so many different kind of responses, everything from, can I take my chair home, or can I have an ergonomic desk set up, because people were working at their dining room tables. And we took our wellness fund that we had, and we were like, you know what, we can use this and get this stuff for the employees. And we would send it to their house, and they were just, wow, like, this is great, thank you. And other people were talking more about the emotional stuff they were going through. And, you know, that hit hard too, because you're trying to do all this other stuff. And, you know, it's kind of like we're like the I guess sometimes I feel like the psychologist for the office, and where I don't have necessarily that training. Sometimes people just need you to listen. And, you know, it put things in perspective too, because not only for the people that are not in HR on this call, not only do all your team members need it, your HR needs it too. Because I can tell you, our team was we're kind of like, we need a break, we need a mental break, like, and we would just huddle up and talk about this stuff and just get it out and vent. And that helped a lot. So I think it just amplified everything, and just kind of put on the forefront what we can be challenged with.
Yeah, I don't want to steal Erika's thunder, and I do want to ask if anybody else wants to come in and on this topic. But one of the coolest things that I heard from, and I always say no before, and you say no before, so I don't know if I'm saying it wrong or not.
Same thing, it's fine.
Was that they kind of paused and said, okay, so people are normally in the office, let's call it 8, 9, 10 hours a day. They're drinking bottled water, they need toilet paper, they're having snacks, all these things that they've always provided. Now somebody that's at home has to buy their own extra toilet paper, their own extra snacks, their own bottled water. And so they actually gave, and correct me, please, but my understanding is you actually gave the employees an allowance every month of like $250 to cover those things that they were having to pay for.
Yeah, it was $200. It was, I called it my snack fund, because we provide free snacks and stuff like that. So we did that. The other thing we did is, when there was a toilet paper shortage and hand sanitizer, is we bought it and shipped it to all of our employees, because we could get it at a commercial rate where they were having a difficulty getting it. And it's what everybody was freaking out about. So you have to the point, you have to listen to the staff, and we're in a new normal right now. You have to listen to your employees and find out what they need, because you can't walk up and talk to them or visually see them or whatever. I think that's so important, is to constantly ask through this, because people's entire lives have changed, entire lives, in a matter of months, and not because of a decision they made. And I think that's huge, is to remember that. And also, I think for employees, not pretending like there's a light at the end of this tunnel that's going to miraculously make everything better. I mean, I do hope it gets better, but we're we're over a year later now, and not that much has changed out in the world for employees. And now they're used to working from home. So you start talking about going back in the office, and they're like, but I can't wear my bike shorts all day, it's just, so.
I love it. Jen, Kelly, anything you'd like to add to how the HR world has changed?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was interesting, because every time before we would have a big issue come up, I would have resources, right? So SHRM is a resource. Our employment law attorney was a resource. Other HR professionals in my circle were resources. And, everything before, I would reach out, hey, what have you done with this before? How have you handled this before? But all of these questions, nobody had any answers. SHRM didn't have answers. Our employment law attorney didn't have answers. There was nobody. And I think that Danielle said it, like, as an HR professional, we were looked to as, what do you think we should do, and how should we handle this? And we were suffering too, because we were going through these same things and the same feelings and the same issues and the same no toilet paper and the same things. But, every time we looked around, people are like, what should we do? What should we do? What should we do? And you're right. I had to, at one point, just gather my team and say, stop, what can I do for you? We opened up our supply closet to anybody that didn't have toilet paper and said, have at it. there weren't, as many people in the office. So, we were able to do things like that as well. And then we actually, a little off topic, but we actually switched our manufacturing on a dime and started making face shields. And we needed people to do those face shields, to put them together. And so, we're hearing all of our employees that they're suffering at home because their spouses got laid off. So even though we didn't lay anybody off, they were still suffering at home from, even their kids being laid off, right? And so we ended up hiring 32, I think it was, family members to do our face shield production. So we opened it up just to the family members of our employees and said, bring them in. And in 4 days, my team brought on and onboarded 32 people, and we're able to have them make some money until they found another job, or until they got called back to work, or until they were able to just get unemployment, like just to get through the website to get unemployment. So some folks were just like, as soon as they were able to get their unemployment, they left so that somebody else could come and make some money. And it was a really wonderful thing, but it was, again, something crazy on our plate that we had never done before. And we had to figure out, how can we do this safely? How can we bring more people into our building? Like, we're trying to get fewer people in our building, but how can we bring more people into our building but still keep them safe? And, obviously we did it. It was successful. We were able to help the Pinellas County government and EMS and all those folks with those face shields that were so desperately needed at the same time. But I'm almost more proud that we were able to help our employees.
Absolutely. Okay, so if everyone's paying attention, next pandemic, we need to get hired by, know before, so we can have toilet paper and send our kids to Kelli.
I'll take them.
Jen, anything you want to add before we move on?
Well, it's hard to top that story. That was amazing. I love it. But the thing that's really coming up for me is that just the awareness that every company is different, and every company has different needs. Some companies are completely desperate for assistance, and then some companies are able to provide that assistance. And I think that really goes towards how we as HR professionals have to critically evaluate the needs of our organization, be able to communicate and manage our relationships so that we can best provide that. So.
Oh, well, very inspiring. Thank you, guys. I'm even more proud to have you on this call, hearing how you guys handled this crazy thing that we've all been through together. Erika, I want to go back to you. This call is full of C-level decision makers or decision makers. They're leaders in their companies and in their industries. And yeah, my favorite thing about you is you say they're doing it wrong. So tell us, and not the people on this call necessarily, but what is it that most leaders get wrong as it relates to the HR world?
I think, and guys, kind of what Bridget's alluding to, I'm very radically honest and I'm radically transparent about things. And I believe that's how one should. I'm like this in my normal life too. I think what a lot of C-levels have gotten wrong is they've forgotten the actual people that are the employees that they have, and that every person has unique situations. And although we have a bottom line and all of this stuff, I think the first thing you got to remember is these are actually people, and they're not working to get a gold watch and 25 years retirement. They're not doing that anymore. And if you don't listen to the people involved in this and remember that they want to work for you only because they believe in the management and believe in what they're doing. You can't throw money at people as much as you, especially now, you cannot just throw money at people and think that they're going to work for you. That, and when it comes to HR, what is right is not always what is correct. What most people, I like to call it like sort of, backseat driver HR is, we've done this for a lot of years. We have a lot of education. We have a huge network of people that know how to do these things right and how to do them completely wrong. And I see a lot of times executives are like, you should do X. And I could list the 10 reasons why X is a terrible idea and going to get you into more trouble. You have to remember that, because we're the ones that are on the front lines doing this. And I can't tell you how many times somebody comes in and they're like, no, this is the right choice. And I'm like, no, not at all. Actually, completely the opposite of what you just said. And did you already do that? Because now I have to undo it. So Like, I think that's important for a lot of C-levels, is to listen to your HR and to listen to your people, and they don't do that enough.
I agree 100%. As somebody who left corporate America, absolutely 100%. Yep, the people are going like this. Jen, it's funny that part of Erika's answer again was about listening, and you know, obviously that's the title of the event, and something a lot of people aren't very good at. But you talked about empathetic listening, and that's not something, or a term that I have heard before, and maybe something that you could enlighten the audience on.
Yeah, so I first learned about this in my coaching school again, and you know, so Erika talked about when she has leaders come to her and the 10 reasons why it's a terrible idea. And sometimes there are different people that we have to deal with, right? So some people will listen if they are so inclined to the HR and be open, or hopefully come to us first, right? And then there's other people who you can tell sometimes just by their stance and how they might react to you. So so we should all strive towards active listening. And I know we all know that term, you know, really paying attention, listening with 2 ears and 1 mouth, you know, listening twice as much as we speak. Empathic listening is a bonus points. You get bonus points for empathic listening, and that is listening to what's not being said. So really listening with our eyes and our intuition to the tone of voice, to the body language of other people. And if we stop and really just sit and listen and pay attention to what they're not saying, but what their bodies are telling us or what their tone of voice is telling us, it's amazing some of the things we can pick up. And that in turn leads us to asking those powerful questions. You know, sometimes I've noticed that you're wringing your hands a lot. What's going on for you? Or I sense that you might not be very comfortable with decision. Talk to me about this. And to be able to kind of pull some information out just by noticing what they're not saying.
So I said it wrong. I'm sorry. I thought it was empathetic listening. It's empathic listening. Bad on me. Sorry about that. We do have a lot of maybe aspirational HR leaders that are on the call, or people who haven't quite made it to all the way to the top of the HR office, but they want to. So as they transition from a practitioner to a leader, Danielle, I would like for you to talk about like what kind of advice that you would give to them, because we've all been in a role where, particularly if you're in the same company, where you go from being coworker and, you know, knowing all the secrets to all of a sudden you're the boss, and it changes things. So give us some insight on that.
Well, with me, I've always worked with small to mid-sized companies. So I was always the one that I'm a 1 or 2 person show. So we did everything. I wasn't specialized in one area. I was a generalist. And so doing that, it's like, I felt like the first couple of years were all like soaking up the HR, getting your certifications. But then there's a point where, you know that like the back of your hand, and then it's learning the business, making yourself more valuable as how do you make an impact on that business every day. And face it, a lot of us HR people aren't good with numbers. So learning your company's finances and how to just simply read, you know, financials is a great way, because then when you're in that room with those other executives, you know what you're talking about, you understand, and you can tie those, how our jobs affect that bottom line so much. And I tell you, networking, especially with being at small and mid-sized companies, networking outside, and I know Jennifer from HR Tampa, and you know, just networking with HR people, but also external as well. I can tell you, game changer this year for me, because there's only so many mentors you can find within your own organization. And for me, I wanted to get out even more and have these types of discussions with people. And I joined Key Associates. It's a women's leadership group. And I'm literally on the phone with 10 different women that are anything from a COO, a CFO, public relations, everything, getting all different kinds of advice, not just from an HR perspective. And I tell you, that has been amazing for me. And it's really helped me evolve and you know, their advice is just priceless for me. And just thinking differently. It's like HR, there's not a straight path for HR, and it's continuously training and get like thinking differently about things. So just kind of, you know, you don't have to stay that path. Like it's constantly changing. You can try things. You can be radical, like Erika was saying, and that's what we try to be now.
That's awesome. Anybody else want to weigh in on that for aspiring professionals? Okay, moving right along. Maybe I should have told you guys ahead of time. If you want to say something, stick your hand in the air because you're all on my top bar, so I will see you. Kelli, having been a manager that ran staffs of not nearly the size of yours, but enough that I currently say my favorite part of my new gig is not managing people. And I mean that. Yeah. I think we can all benefit from hearing about new hire turnover and how to minimize that. I mean, as a previous manager, it was one of the most frustrating things. You know, what are companies doing wrong and how can they fix that?
I mean, this is a big one. People say folks don't leave companies, they leave managers. And I think that's true for your more tenured folks, for sure, 100%. But I think for the new hires, it's certainly poor management can play into it. So if your managers aren't good managers and good leaders, then it certainly plays a part in it. But I think it's really, employees need to form relationships, right? They need to be involved in the group. They need to have different connections. But they also need to know where they stand, right? So it's so easy. In some places, a new person comes in and nobody talks to them because they're like, oh, you're probably going to be gone in 6 weeks anyway. You're not going to make it. So why would I spend time trying to get to know you and things like that, right? And so if we're allowing that to happen, then that's step one. Step one, they are not going to form those relationships. They're not going to get integrated into their department. And I think the other thing is we bring people in without a plan to train them. We bring people in and say, oh, you'll learn from so-and-so how you do your job. And, you know, you probably know how to do it in 6 months, but you don't give them any real milestones. You don't say that in 90 days or in 30 days or, you know, whatever those are, here are your expectations. And I expect you to be here in 30 days. And I expect you to be there in 60 days. And that's what you can say is success for yourself, right? So if you're at this point, then you are doing a great job and you are where you need to be and you're succeeding in your job. If you're just letting them go and not saying anything, in this situation, no news is good news, doesn't fly, right? No news is you don't even know who I am and I have no impact on your business and I don't matter. And if that's how someone feels and they don't have those connections to the other employees, anything can make them leave. Nothing could make them leave, right? They'll leave for, you know, 5 cents more an hour, or they'll leave because somebody called them and say, you know, that it's nice to work here and you're my friend. So you already have a connection. But if people have those connections and they have those measures of success where they can come to work and go, ooh, I did something right? And I accomplished something. I hit that 30-day mark and, you know, I got those kudos or whatever it is. They need it. They've got to have that connection or else they're going to be gone. And a lot of companies, they'll have people that have been here 5 years or longer, and there's a ton of them. And they have nobody that's made it past a year because they're not getting there. I mean, that's a big problem.
Yeah, true story. My previous life, and for those of you who know what that was, we'll leave it unnamed. For those of you who don't, it doesn't matter. But literally on my second day, when I showed up to work, it was the person who was the HR manager that said, oh my God, you came back. And I was 29 years old. I will never forget that. I was like, should I not have, like, is there something I need to know? Something you guys haven't told me yet? So yeah, not a good look, right? So Erika, I was going to go back to you and talk about surveys, but tell me, like, by a thumbs up, thumbs down. We already kind of covered what you wanted to say about that, I think, right?
We did, and Danielle was about to comment, and I wanted to comment on Kelly's things. So I'm going to let Danielle go first because she put her hand up, which was following the rules. So you go first, and then I'll go.
Thanks, Erika. I think too, to Kelly's point, like that onboarding, we went through this with my last company, and it was the people they were choosing to onboard and train were like the worst people in the company. It's just like, why would you put the person that's not successfully doing the job in charge of training? And sometimes the managers were like, they just didn't want to train. So it's like, well, would you rather train the person right and have no problems going forward, or would you rather have that person that isn't a very good trainer or is negative about the company or whatever, be that ambassador for your company? So that's a lot of that's another mistake that a lot of companies do in choosing who's training and doing that.
I wanted to just say, I think one thing that we do at Know Before is we start before they're even hired there. We have whoever their manager is going to be, email them, welcoming them to the team. All the way through their first week, they're having constant contact with people on the people ops team, but also on the training team. And we have their manager come have meetings with them. And we take them now to a virtual lunch, and we have virtual coffee time. And we make them feel like they're part of their little micro group, and then integrate them into the bigger team. So they immediately, we call them Nosters. That's our name for all of our employees, Nosters. But they immediately become a Noster, and they immediately are introduced. They're introduced publicly to the entire company. They do a little video like in announcing themselves, and it's made into a big deal, because I think what Kelly said is very true. If you do not make them feel like they're comfortable and welcome, because everybody forgets how nerve-wracking it is to walk in on your first day on the job, and you're waiting for a shoe to drop. I don't care how great the company is, you're still waiting to be drop kicked out the door. So if you don't do all these things and make them feel comfortable and have a clear training path, and here's a manual you can reference, and just don't hope they get it right, they never get on solid ground and they don't start. And I think this gets very heavily overlooked in companies. I can't tell you how many I've seen where you get handed a binder or maybe a bunch of files now, and then you watch archaic videos about a company and you're like, this was made in 1986. I can tell by the hairstyles. Like, who wants to interact with that versus a person giving them those same facts, but in a fun way that they'll remember it? Like, harassment training, don't get me started on that one. That's a whole other one.
That's the next series. So Jen, you talked a lot about coaching and being in a coaching situation. How can coaching skills help us as managers be better listeners?
Well, I'm a huge fan of coaching skills for everyone in the company, especially for HR and for managers. In fact, I helped create and teach a program for SHRM on coaching and mentoring in the workplace. But I think the 3 key skills that I learned in my coach training that are most beneficial to managers in the workplace is, number 1, the mindset. So having a curious mindset, curiosity over judgment. So often we'll hear that person, walk down the hall, and you're like, oh, please keep walking, right? And we have to, and of course they stop right into our office. So really making sure that we set aside the judgment and go in with curiosity can be really, really powerful. Step 2 that I've already talked about is asking powerful questions. And step 3, which we kind of alluded to earlier, I think Erika was kind of talking about, is making sure people feel heard. And that's validation. So really making sure that we validate what they're saying. It doesn't mean that we have to agree with them, but just validating and letting people know, I hear you. And that helps allow that psychological safety, that safe space for people to talk to us. And then my favorite is, I think, somebody was talking about this earlier too. I just want to support that is, okay, what have you done for yourself lately, right? What steps have you taken to resolve this problem, to help put the ownership back on them for any of the issues that they might be having. So that's how coaching can help coaching can help managers help employees, or HR professionals help managers help employees to really take care of their own issues instead of always having them come to us.
I love that. That's great advice. Kelli, our world has changed a little bit. It used to be, and I have 3 25-year-old children, and it was, you will go to college, you will go to college. Now there's all this talk about college might not necessarily be where it's at, and what happened to all the laborers, and how are we going to keep those jobs filled? My track, and those that I know well, their track was, I want to be a manager. I mean, I remember saying so many times, which goes back to be careful what you wish for. I want to be a manager. But how do we keep employees motivated and excited and wanting to be a part of our team when management might not be their track? Like, how do you handle that situation?
So that's a tough one, because people are conditioned, I think, to think that being a manager is equal to being successful, right? So it really doesn't matter what your personality profile is. And we do a lot of predictive index stuff, Jennifer. So we've been working a lot with this lately, and I've probably said this sentence 100 times in the past 3 weeks. We have got to stop rewarding good performance and behavior by making somebody a manager, because it is not a reward. It's just not, right? Especially when you're talking about people that don't have those personality profiles, and people that do not have good mentors and leaders to help them learn those types of behaviors, right? So we say all the time, you're a great machine operator. Congratulations, now you're the manager. We would never say, you're such a great people manager, I bet you can run the heck out of that machine. Like, that's ludicrous, right? You wouldn't say it the opposite way, but we do say it, like, it doesn't make any sense, right? So we take our highest performing folks and we reward them by putting them in a job that is going to burn them out, that they're going to hate, and they're likely going to leave our company, right? Because they're not going to go back to being a machine operator after being a manager, because that's going to look like they failed. But they're going to leave and they're going to go be somebody else's best machine operator. So we have to find ways, whether we're talking about machine operators, or we're talking about R&D folks, or we're talking about process engineers, or we're talking about even, the more technical roles, we have to find ways that we can give folks a path to success, right? Whatever that means for them. But we have to change the dialogue, that the path doesn't have to lead to management. We started a program in the past year, and it's a tiered pay for skill system, where it's visible, it's attainable, it's rewarding, where we have different levels of machine operators. So if they come in and they don't have any experience, of course, they're going to be the lowest. But as they go through, it's visible. Like, here are the skills that you need to be a level 2, and here are the skills that you need to be a level 3. And you can move up and make just about as much money as the managers make by gaining those skills. And jobs don't have to open up. You don't have to interview for them. Somebody doesn't have to leave. We don't have to post them. It's just, you're going to bring more skill and more knowledge to our company. You get to move up, you get more respect, you get more money, you get a better title, you get all those things. And I think that it's important that not just, we started it with our production employees and our machine operators and things like that, but we're looking at it for really all levels of the organization, so that you can reward people in a different way than making them managers. Because I mean, unless we change the perception of what success looks like, and part of that is talking to the employees and asking them, right? But if it's not visible and it's not accessible, and we're not having those conversations, then people will say, I'm just going to be a machine operator making this amount of money, and there's no opportunity for me. And that's you're going to leave talent on the table, for sure.
I was watching for hands to go up. Oh, Erika's went up. Okay, Erika.
I can't stress what Kelli said enough. If you want to go back to my previous question about what some executives do wrong, they forget about institutional knowledge and how valuable institutional knowledge is. Not every employee, some of them get themselves into a little trap of being less productive longer down the line, but a lot of them have institutional knowledge that doesn't have to grow into that area. And sometimes you also, don't lose sight of institutional knowledge and the value that has, because to retrain somebody, you look at the cost of that, and I'm sure we've all done metrics on that, but that can be ridiculously expensive. But the other thing is, have a way for them to change career paths. I say this all the time. I like to change what I want to be when I grow up regularly, because I think it's important to change what you want to be when you grow up, no matter what age you are. So if you have somebody and you find out they want to do something else, have a way for them to go learn to do that. Because if they knew how to do this in your organization, they're going to be helpful in doing the other thing, if you have a way for them to do that and not think they're ceilinged out and can't go anywhere else. Right? Even if they do want to go on the executive track, I think you can lose a lot of good talent, especially now, because people will leapfrog from jobs. Gone is the day where you look for somebody who's been in a job for 5 or 6 years. You look for somebody who's been there about 2 years. And when you ask why they're moving, they go, 'cause I want to move up. And if there's not a chance, they're going to leapfrog right out of your company to go do it somewhere else. And then they're going to get that experience, and you're going to want to hire them back, and they're going to cost like 100% more than they cost when they left the last time. I see that all the time.
Yeah, and to your point, I mean, that's true, because folks get more and more valuable over the course of time. But if they're locked into a 3% raise, right? If that at this time, if they're locked into a 3% raise and they get 5 years of experience with you, their value in the marketplace is, I don't know, double, right? So unless you have to pay attention to those things too. If you're bringing in a process engineer at the beginning of their career, they're going to be benchmarked really low, but a process engineer with 3 years of experience is like midpoint, right? And if you're only giving them the 3%, then you're not showing them that you value them, and you're not showing them that their value to your company has grown, and they're going to leave. They're not going to come tell you, hey, I think I'm more valuable. You're going to find out when you get their notice, because you should notice them, right? They shouldn't have to tell you.
Absolutely. I'm a walking example. Jen?
Yeah. And so I know there've been a lot of talk about predictive index, and we have my 2 partners for MVP results, which is an elite partner, which means we're the best on the call. And one of our partners just offered everyone on the call a free assessment. So Mike, if you wouldn't mind just dropping in the assessment link so everybody can go to. And the reason I'm mentioning it on the piggybacking off of what Erika and Kelli just said is because we offer so many tools that share how you can value your employees and what the employees need so that you can speak to that employee, and also help with career pathing as well. So just offer that as a free gift to everyone.
We're coming close to the end of our time, and my favorite question that I can't wait for you guys to answer. I'm going to start with Danielle on the answer, and then we'll just move down the line. We called this the Radical CHRO series because that's what Erika said. But at the core of that was, I had in my gut that this is something that we needed to do, and that we have the audience that can change and make change. And so I'd like to know from each of you, since you said, yes, I'll be on that panel, knowing that it was a brave move, what do you want to see done radically different? Like, where do you see, if you get one thing, you walk in an organization and you say, we're going to do this different, what is that one thing? Danielle?
Well, for me, I'm someone that, my mission is for people to understand their potential. And obviously HR worries about everybody in the company, but it's time to worry about the future of our companies and the future of this world that we're living in. And even just from, you can look at it from a diversity standpoint, next generation standpoint, however you want to look at it. But I think having an organization like Franklin Street, we definitely care about our communities, but in this next year, we're really focusing on the children. Like, we have a low diversity rate in real estate anyway. It's a lot of males, a lot of white males in real estate. So, with that, like, I never knew in high school that what a commercial real estate broker did, and so I think getting out there and actually, showing kids what's possible. I don't think we do enough of that. And, there's organizations like Junior Achievement doing this new 3DE program where they get, projects to work on. They just did one with Hillsborough County Sheriffs and, Cristo Rey, where kids come in and actually work for your organization. And to me, that, like, if I had that when I was in high school, oh my gosh, I would have loved it. But it also would have opened my mind to the potential of what else could there be? And I mean, I didn't know, I fell into HR when I was probably about 25-ish. So, no one in HR came and talked to me. So I think for the future of, not only our companies, but for this world, we gotta show the kids the potential that they have. And that's really putting the onus on us to go out and teach them what they could be.
Erika, you want to weigh in on that one?
Well, I agree 100% with Danielle. I think for the conversation we're having, if I could have people walk away and remember to care for every single employee, all of the great ones and the not so great ones, because we do have those, but you have to care and have empathy for every single person and what their journey is. And that's where you'll build a really strong company, because it's a team. It really has to be a team from the very top of the organization to the very bottom. And I don't care how big it is, in remembering that the people are there and they have to be listened to.
Jen?
Yeah, so I'm kind of a cross between Erika and Danielle. I believe that as HR, we need to really give the employees the ownership to build up their own career and make sure that they hold themselves accountable. And then Danielle earlier talked about the importance of finances and how important it is for HR to really be a strategic partner. I wrote 3 books for SHRM on the business acumen, critical evaluation, and consultation that really focuses on that business cluster of the SHRM body of competency and knowledge. And I think it's so important for HR to go in understanding the business and the people side, but also the business side.
No, that's great advice. Kelli, you want to weigh in on this one?
I do. I think the biggest thing for me is, in order to change the perception of what HR is to the frontline employees, we have to change the way that we act. And we can't sit in our office up in the C-suite and expect to have relationships and trust with our employees. I moved my office out onto the floor because I could not get people to come see me. But more, I try, and my whole team, we go see people where they are. We walk around, we go grab a cup of coffee, we go sit in the lunchroom, because you get to know people in a different way. You personalize yourself when you get out from behind the desk, and you get to know what people's faces look like what their default energy looks like. And I think it's important to notice that, because if you get somebody that every morning when they walk in, they're like, "Good morning, Miss Kelly, how was your weekend?" And one day you walk in and they're like, "Morning." You can identify an issue before it becomes a problem by saying, "I see you, let's chat," right? And whether it's come back to my office so we can have some privacy, or let's take a walk outside so we can have some privacy. If you're comfortable sharing what's going on with you, please do, and let me help you find resources that can help you get through that. We have resources that they don't know we have, right? And so if we could do that, or we can say, "You know what? Okay, so you're having something going on at home. I will run interference for you." Okay, so you do not have to worry about your job. You do not have to worry about your manager being upset with you. If you need to compose yourself, you can come in my office and shut the door. Whatever it is that you need, we're here for you. So whatever we have to do, if we need to change your schedule for a couple of days, if we need to give you some time off, if we need to help you with resources, if you just need an ear to vent to so you can get past it, whatever it is, we want you to succeed. And so I would rather you come to us, or, whatever, however you get there, and help us help you get through it, rather than your work suffer and nobody knows why, and now it's a discipline issue because nobody noticed that something was off.
Nobody noticed. I think that's a great end to that conversation. I want to be respectful of people's time. We're at 5:31. As we said from the beginning, oftentimes the best conversations take place after 5:30. So if everyone wants to grab a glass of wine and come back and join us, we have tons of history with like 15 or 20 of these where it's always a really great time to network with each other. I do have a question that I want to lead off with, but just for the people who may need to jump off, I want to make sure and thank Erika and Know-Be-Before for sponsoring this topic. You guys rocked it, and it's such an important topic. And now I'm thinking, oh my God, we have to do another one of these in a quarter. How am I going to do it as good with as good of panelists? So thank you for giving your time and for being here for everyone today. Little plug for TBBW. We do have a newsletter. We'd love if you signed up. Our website is tbbwmag.com, super easy. You can subscribe to the magazine, you can subscribe to the newsletter, you can do all kinds of things on there and find all kinds of great content.